never been done before.
This guy's got it.
Well, g'day, beautiful, wonderful people. How are you this fine sort of a Friday? At least it has been pretty fine here in my part of the world for the day. We've only just, in the last half hour or so, got a burst of rain that, I don't know, gave us it was a reasonable downpour, but the ground sort of needs it, so it'll get soaked up. And wouldn't you know it, just as an irrigation system goes in. And we were trying to test whether or not it works. Still, it worked in the rain, so all things being equal, not a bad day. How's yours been? Have you shuffled off, done anything amazing? Better still, have you been off to Ainsley Bullion and purchased yourself some silver or some gold? I've got to tell you, prices are going up, they're going down, they're going up, they're going down. But right now, for about $51, you can get yourself just about an ounce of silver of whatever you like. You'll see that there are some pretty good specials going on at the moment with Ainsley Bullion. I particularly like that Chinese Myths and Legends one. And while you might be thinking that gold and silver is out of your realm of possibility, that's what the Ainsley Saver is really good at helping people with, because it allows you to buy incrementally. And when you've got enough to take home a coin or a ingot or whatever it is you want to buy, then you just go in and get it. It's that simple. But it allows you to, a bit like lay-by, I guess, pay it off, but you actually get ownership of whatever portion you own with the money you put in. Ainsley Saver, you can go and check all those details at Ainsley Saver, or rather at ainsleyBullion.com.au. And they do have a big specials area to go in and have a look there and see what else is happening. A lot of that information, in fact, 99% of the information that I shared with you last night from Fort Knox came from one of the Ainsley newsletters. Now, they put out, depending on what's happening in the market, more than one a day, but they are a wealth of information. Their people, their analysis is always spot on. So if you're keen on upping your knowledge in that particular area, then I would highly recommend getting the Ainsley Bullion newsletter. It's free right into your inbox every day. Okay, so a lot of lovely people. First in the room tonight, though, was DM, shortly followed thereafter by Sunflower, and they came in like within minutes, seconds really, of me posting up the show a bit after 5:30. I hope you and Rick are doing well, Sunflower, and the rest of the fam is doing what fam does, particularly the grandkids, growing and asking for more. Isn't that how it works? So, yeah, hope everything's going well with you guys. Sandy K, love you, darling. Hope the donkeys are doing well. Your social media content thing has really been upped. I'm seeing a lot of donkeys on my feed. And some of them are yours. Like, some of them are just dickheads doing things. But the real donkeys are all yours. So congratulations. You guys doing really, really well. Lisa, yeah, my sister's birthday today. Yours is tomorrow. Do you want to know another weird thing? My sister's name is Lisa. Just gets weirder and weirder. 6 degrees and all that. Hello, Aussie Sue. I bet you will warm up north today, and there is a chance it's going to get sweaty and wet again. I believe there is a tropical low that's sort of brewing around at the moment, or a couple of them that might be bouncing together, and they'll sort of nullify each other. I've never heard of two tropical lows coming together and nullifying each other. Usually they strengthen. But look, I'm not a weather person. You can go and see Robert for that. I'm sure he'll have much better information than I can give you. But generally hot, sweaty, and we are in cyclone season. So I would expect probably a little more wet coming our way. And when I say ours, well, ours will be wet, but yours could be, well, wet and all sorts of misery. So I hope that doesn't come your way. Hello, Margot. G'day, Andrew. And who else? The Sabinator was in the room right on the dot at 6 o'clock. Nice to have you in, mate. Thank you for your, I saw it late in the show last night. Thank you for your donation of memberships. Really appreciate it, mate. Really appreciate it. And as always, anything we can do for you, you just reach out. It's easy to do. And as Aussie Sue says, please remember to like and share, folks. We need all the help we can get. And getting the message out is what we need. It's not so much the help that we need your help with. Or financially, although that's always great. We need your help to spread the message, to share the news. And if you feel you're getting it in a reasonable way, in a reasonable fashion here, then I, would welcome you to share the program far and wide. And should you so like the idea, please take up a membership or donate at vofhq.com. Silver Fox, I do like the way you are working things at the moment, even though I don't seem to be able to bring up your comment. Oh, it's frozen again. Okay, one of those interesting kind of things where my computer seems to be having a conniption, and I don't know whether or not it's stopped at your end or not. That's, can I just say, very, very, very strange. Anyway, I'll do the old radio trick, as I keep saying, and I will just continue to plow on regardless, in the hope that life, the universe, and everything comes good again. In fact, what I might do, if it's going to allow me, and it is, what I might do is see whether or not I can get back. However, the computer hasn't. So I'm going to try and leave, and I'll come back in just a moment. Or I won't be able to leave. Well, there you go. So, okay, thank you, Denise. I'm just wondering what you were seeing and or hearing. Kang, same to you. Thank you so much. Aussie Sue, God, thank you so much. Okay, so when the video freezes, it's freezing at my end as well, but I'm just not sure whether or not the voice is getting out, but you guys are telling me you're hearing it 5 by 5, as Stewie tells me. So, something a bit weird going on in the world there. I was sort of thinking, because the camera kicked me out, but the whole screen locked, and then everything went black, and then it came back with no camera working. I had to leave the studio, come back into the studio, and the camera decides to work. Weirder, curiouser, and stranger by the minute, I say. All right, let's kick off with a few bits of news they probably don't want you to know about today. Here's an interesting one. There's a new research document that has been put out by no less than Lancet. It says that the spicy cough could increase your risk of HIV infection. Not the spicy cough exactly, just the jab associated with it. So it is as we have expected. Some of the mRNA jabs that are currently in development could increase the risk of acquiring HIV. That's a warning coming from a group of researchers through Lancet, the medical journal, and a highly respected one it is. Now, this could potentially lead to infection. That would be HIV infection. And it could be rolled out through all age groups across the entire population. It's going to get weird and wild. Look at this. They don't want me to show you stuff at all. So that screen is locked up again. And I'm wondering what I've got going in the background that I can stop, if anything. I don't think there's too much going in the background I can stop. I'll try. Shut down that. Oh, yep, right. I seem to be moving again. Hello? Yes, there you go. How delightful. So, yeah, if you weren't aware, HIV does form part of the ingredients in the spicy cough jab. So you do stand some form of risk in developing it. If you, and look at that, the bloody screen stopped again. If you have been partaking of the spicy jab over the recent times, as they do, this is getting pretty annoying, isn't it? Can't get the screen to roll on. Makes life very difficult. What I was going to tell you, even if I can't tell you at the moment, or show you the images at the moment anyway, but you can hear me at any rate. Anthony Albo Sleazy, the worst Prime Minister, and that's saying something, in Australian history, in my estimation, and his good mate Tony the Burke are trying to do their very best to screw with the Australian electoral system. How are they trying to do this? Well, at the moment in Western Australia, they are going off tap when it comes to introducing new Australian citizens to the electoral roll. Now, when I say they're going off tap, what does that really mean? Well, at the moment, they're presiding over 1,000 new citizens joining the ranks every day. There we go. But it's lost my camera again. Hang on a minute. I'll just pop out and come back. This is going to get a little tiring if it keeps going all night like this. Rather disappointing, I would say. There we go. That moves me down to the bottom. I prefer that. So, yeah, Tony Burke, Anthony Albo Sleazy are rushing through mass citizenship ceremonies in Western Sydney, and they're also doing it in Western Australia. They have 25 ceremonies planned in 12 days. 12,500 people are going to be registered as Australian citizens before March 4. Where do you think those 12,500 citizens are going to be told to vote? Now, this is an old trick that Labor, and I suspect Liberal Party, have probably used over time as well. However, is this something the Australian people should be standing for? Australian citizenship is something that should be hard won, earned, and respected. Those folks who come into this country and don't do that, and these are a lot of people just like that. These are people who've been rushed through the immigration system. And of course, as soon as they become Australian citizens, become able to access the Australian welfare system and associated other things. Now, yes, a lot of these immigrants have a lot of money. They've already brought it into the country. The government already has access to it. But what happens when things go bad? Well, Voldemort has a bit of an idea. He says that he's going to propose constitutional changes to deport migrants engaged in hate crimes. God love him. At the moment, the only hate crimes that he seems to be wanting to talk about, I'll put myself back up there, are anti-Semitism crimes. Under the guise of our protection, he is planning to try and put forward a constitutional referendum to enable a change to the Constitution that allows them to throw people out. Now, you might ask yourself, why can't they throw people out already? Well, that's because there is a very narrow window of law that allows for that to happen. And really, the only way for it can happen is if the people have lied or put false information on their citizenship document. A lot of that's very hard to prove or disprove, as the case might be. So the High Court has limited the government's use of that particular law to deport migrants who have committed severe crimes in this country and not allowed their deportation. Now, in some cases, I'm led to believe that a lot of that was instigated when we had a large amount of our Kiwi brethren living over here, and they were committing a disproportionate amount of violent crime and organised crime. Once they had been caught and they had been sentenced, found guilty, and basically done their time, they were then put on a plane and sent back to New Zealand. I'm not sure if that's still the case today, but it was certainly something that was happening a few years ago. I want to say while Campbell Newman was in power, and what a surprise that would be. Campbell Newman managed to do quite a few very good things while he was in power. Unfortunately, the Labor union machine got behind him, but he managed to clean out the public service or the public servants, and then unfortunately the unions were able to get back at him, which was quite disgusting. Now, I want to share a video file with you that I've come across today. There is what seems to be a new offering for the freedom movement that the freedom movement is putting forward to anyone who is running for an electoral position, be it local, state, or federal politics. I think it is a really, really good initiative. It's called a Freedom Pledge, and it's being run by the Australian Taxation Alliance, who sound, for the most part, at least in this situation, that they've got their heads screwed on.
So I'm here
well. Cool.
participating in a terrific initiative by the Australian Taxpayers Alliance to find Australian politicians who are prepared to pledge to commit to defending free speech. So this pledge sets out commitments that either elected officials or people seeking election will make, and I'm very, very happy to sign it, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about what's on it once I've done that. So as far as I know, I'm the first Australian political candidate to make this pledge. I'm confident that I'll be followed by many others, including Gerard Rennick and I'm sure Senator Malcolm Roberts. And the pledge basically says that pledges will oppose and vote against digital ID in any form, vote against the Orwellian hate speech bill, vote for its repeal now that it has passed, and support the push to enshrine free speech as an inalienable right in the Australian Constitution by way of a referendum. So I am the first. I'm confident that I won't be the last, and this was a very, very easy pledge to make.
A very, very easy pledge to make, and I would respect any person who was going to stand for any kind of public office that is willing to take that pledge. It seems to be 3 easy steps, and worthwhile investigating more, and kudos to the Australian Taxation Alliance for being able to get it together and get at least this guy, Jordan Ditloff, is running as a Senate candidate in Victoria. So good luck to him, and all power to him. And I think it's a bloody good start, and something everybody who's standing for office should be signing, a pledge to do the right thing by the Australian people. Surely it shouldn't be that bloody hard. But yeah, anyway, long story. Sorry, I just saw a comment there that's thrown me for just a minute. Interesting headlines coming out of Europe today. The Hungarian Prime Minister has put out a warning regarding the globalist rats, I think he called them, that are now running for cover and for money in the European Union. He said, our fears have come true. The globalist liberal Soros NGO network is fleeing to Brussels after President Trump dealt a huge blow to their activities in the US. Now, 63 of them are asking Brussels for money under the guise of various human rights projects. Not going to happen. We will not let them find safe haven in Europe. The US AID files exposed the dark practices of the globalist network. We will not take the bait again. This guy from Hungary is a real Trump supporter. I do remember when Trump was in power previously, he was standing up, practically, wanted to make Hungary great again, and I'm not sure he didn't have a hat to say just that. But he means it. He's one of the very strongest, how would you put it, westernized leaders. I wouldn't call him westernized either, but he's a very progressive leader that understands how the world and the people work. And he's obviously lived under and grown up under some pretty oppressive regimes. He's been able to see how other parts of the world work, and certainly with politics in that part of the world, he will know how bastardry plays out. Speaking of bastardry, Russia is taking back lots of land. 64% of territory captured by Ukraine has been taken back in a key region. Now, that's around Donetsk and some other areas. The Russians are not mucking around. They've made major gains to a point where they've taken about 5,000 kilometers square. I think that's 5,000 square kilometers of land. The only thing that Zelensky really has much control over at the moment is a small part of Kursk, about 400 or 500 kilometers, and the Russians are moving to take that as well. Obviously, Kursk being the Russian submarine base. Pop over me. That might change the way that Starlink works, so I'll take this opportunity to flick back to the other thing. Well, I don't know whether that worked better or not. We'll wait and see. So, yeah, they want to take back Kursk, or at least the portions around the submarine bases, I would suspect. And they do have a lot of interesting submarine bases around the Russian coastline hidden, and they've got a lot of the same sort of things hidden in fjords and all sorts of things all through that northern region of the world. What am I thinking of? Sweden, Norway, those sorts of places. The current commander of Ukraine's chiefs, of Ukraine's army, the commander-in-chief military guy, is a guy called Strizky. And he said that Kiev controlled about 500 kilometers of Kursk, but Russians have now moved further in on that, and expect further news in, well, I would say the very near future, that they will pause proceedings while President Trump and the Russians conduct what must be, I guess, nothing more than one-sided peace talks. There has been a number of complaints from countries around Ukraine and from Ukraine itself that they aren't and haven't been invited to have a seat at the table of the peace talks between Russia and America. We say America with a bit of a question mark, but Donald Trump was able to answer that question today.
A message for Ukrainians who, after 3 years of fighting, might feel betrayed or disappointed at not having a seat at these initial talks in Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think I'm really disappointed in what's happened. I've been watching this for 3 years. It's a war that would have never happened if I was president, and I've been watching these people being killed at levels that you've rarely seen, not even close, since the Second World War. And I'm very disappointed. I hear that, they're upset about not having a seat. Well, they've had a seat for 3 years and a long time before that. This could have been settled very easily. Just a half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago without the loss of much land, very little land, without the loss of any lives, and without the loss of cities that are just laying on their sides. You have those magnificent golden domes that are shattered, will never be replaced. You can't replace them. 1,000-year-old domes that are so beautiful, you can't replace that. The whole civilization has changed because of what. So when they're worried about not being seated, you mean somebody that should have gone in and made a deal a long time ago?
If you don't get the message from that, then I don't think you've got much hope of getting a message at all, unless it's posted by, an F-22 or an F-35 jet and arrives at supersonic speed. And I'm not completely sure there aren't a few people in Ukraine ready, willing, and happy to accept that. The people, unfortunately, of Ukraine are the ones who wind up suffering, of course. But never fear, help is at hand. It's called a proto-clone. Ever heard of a proto-clone? Me either, just between you and I, but get a load of this one. Now, this is a proto-clone that is twitching and, well, doing whatever the hell that is. One assumes from electrical stimulus coming through its wiring. They are calling this a tall, white ghost humanoid robot. Doesn't have a face. And they are saying it is the first, proto-clone that imitates and will look like the most realistic human to date. Personally, I think that little, picture, God love it. Let's just relive that for a minute. That looks like something that's come out of Friday the 13th or a bloody horror movie of some kind. So, God help us. Kash Patel has been sworn in as, well, I don't know he's been sworn in. He has been confirmed as the new head of the FBI. The vote, I think, was 48-45. And this is how long
Nomination, Department of Justice, Kash Patel of Nevada to be director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
And that was how long it took. 48-45. So I guess he's done pretty well. And once he assumes the office, which I hope would be in the new week, I think they're sprung and ready to go, then we will see the release of things like the full Jeffrey Epstein list, which was predicted to come out at the end of February or early March, and not until Kash Patel was announced. We're also likely to find out a lot more about the P. Diddy situation and others involved, I guess, in the latter-day PSYOP that was used, or CIA operation used to blackmail people. And I fear that there will be some very wide, broad, and violent awakenings for those people who are not yet completely sure that we are in a battle. The war is real. The fact that it has been hidden from many for so long, notwithstanding, the war is real. And very soon, I think there are going to be a lot of very obvious proofs of that particular thing. Interesting news coming out, and this is a little older news. You may know this already. The Ninth Circuit Court, which is a very liberal, which means to say the opposite of what liberal means here in Australia, a very liberal court normally has made an order that Joe Biden's last-minute pardons are unconstitutional. That means that the Fauci and, every other pardon, not necessarily his son's, or at least the charge for the charges his son was charged with, but everybody else's pardon is null and void. That means that all the protectionist pardons he put out, the pre-pardons, are completely unconstitutional. The court said you cannot pardon someone who hasn't been charged, let alone convicted of a crime. And nobody has charged Fauci or any of the generals or any of the other deep staters at this point with anything. So the pre-pardon doesn't work. Unconstitutional. It hasn't been a good day for the Democrats. An Obama-appointed judge has blocked efforts by 14 Democrat states to prevent DOGE from accessing 7 federal agencies. Now, the court ruled that the states failed to provide evidence beyond speculation that Elon Musk and DOGE's investigation would cause irreparable harm. Now, they slammed the overreach, stating that the lawsuit was questionable, the unchecked authority of an unelected individual and an entity not even created by Congress. She ruled that the court could not issue a sweeping TRO without clear evidence of imminent harm. Well, once again, as it says, the whole Trump train rolls on. And what a bloody good roll on it is. I can't wait to see some of those amazing, I think truly amazing, the bloody picture's frozen again. Truly amazing videos and audios that are going to be released in the next, well, I'm led to believe, few weeks. And not that I'm into giving you dates, but if you were listening a couple of weeks ago to a show, we did talk about the potential for April the 11th to be a very strong date. This was predicted by one of the financial gurus and a guy who has been pretty much spot on with financial industry news for a very long time. We are seeing a lot of changes behind the scenes in the financial industry, and it takes somebody much smarter than me to convey those to you. I don't fully understand it, but there is a lot going on in Iraq at the moment, and with the, I think now, open decision that USAID is just a fraudulent front for sending money, good taxpayer money, into dark, shady and shifty areas. Through that discovery and the amount of money that America has been putting into Iraq for a number of years, they've discovered that Iraq are now able to stand on their own 2 feet, so to speak. And this is financially, and that the dinar is starting to move. Here we go. The whole system's come back. I might be able to take that off, but my head won't be there. Let me pop out and come back. I have to say, it is getting a little droll, isn't it? Oh, look, the system's dropped the background, so maybe I've got a few issues going on with the computer. She is doing a good job. She is reasonably hot. There is a fan going underneath it, but it's still blowing out a fair amount of heat. Anyway, we'll see what we can do and progress on. We'll see if we can get to our next video. RFK Jr. was confirmed only recently as the new head of Health and Services Department. He did this interview recently, had a great deal to say about the flu shot. Now, the flu shot is something that we are about to be pummeled with in the coming months in the lead up to winter. Have a listen to what RFK Jr. has to say.
In a million years, I would not take the flu shot. And I'll tell you why, because this is what Cochrane and BMJ have found. People who take the flu shot are protected against that strain of flu. They're 4.4 times more likely to get a non-flu infection. And you might find, and a lot of people do, that they get the flu shot and then they get sick. They're usually not getting the flu. They're getting something that is indistinguishable from the flu, because the flu shot gives you something called pathogenic priming. It injures your immune system so that you're more likely to get a non-flu viral upper respiratory infection. In fact, the Pentagon published a story, and you can cite this, it's by Wolfe, W-O-L-F-E, in January of this year, in which they said the flu shot not only primes you for flu, and it primes you for coronavirus. If you they had a placebo group and they had a vaccine group because they wanted for military readiness to see if the flu shot was prophylactic against coronavirus. What they found is actually the people who got the flu shot were 36% more likely to get coronavirus. And that's not a lone study. We found 6 other major studies that say the same thing. If you get the flu shot, you're more likely to get coronavirus. You know,
does it get any clearer than that? I don't think so. I think it's pretty easy to follow. And to think that our flu shot is going to be any different to their flu shot is just folly. So don't go that way. Our flu shot is no different to theirs. And I've got a horrible, horrible suspicion neither is our fog. So this is a fog that happened in Florida recently. And folks are now experiencing respiratory issues and all sorts of stuff. There were samples of this fog taken, and it found particles and bacteria and all sorts of shit, caused wound infections, caused respiratory illness, caused all sorts of issues in many hundreds of people. I beg your pardon, many thousands of people. Now, I don't know whether those issues are ongoing, but it's not the first time that these thick, heavy, weird fogs have been reported. Now, some have been reported in Europe, some have been reported particularly in northern parts of North America in the lead up to winter and their big snows. Also, for whatever reason, appearing in places like Florida. And only the other day, they had to shut down, I think it was Fort Lauderdale, because they had this weird fog that would not dissipate. That might have been that fog right there. I've got a sneaking suspicion. So what do? We've got our fog season is coming up real soon. And if they're doing it in America, you can be guaranteed they will be doing it here. And I actually think they did do it here last year already. So, and many of you have probably experienced that. There were some great videos, particularly in Victoria, of very strange fog that was, visible, not just through the camera lens, but through a car windscreen through a camera lens at night. You could see that it's almost like snow, except it wasn't snow. It was something absolutely much more horrifying. Much more horrifying indeed. All right, on to bigger and better things. Adam Schiff, such a turd of a human being. Such a turd of a human being. He's come out with this rather spectacular little boast, or not boast, question. Elon Musk is trying to access your personal bank account and details, tax data. The world's richest man should not and cannot be able to snoop around your personal finances. Period. End of story. Somebody replied, he's not trying to snoop around my personal finances. He's trying to snoop around yours, because you get paid with taxpayer money and should be subjected to these types of audits on a regular basis to flush out obvious conflicts of interest. Ooh, shit. That certainly shut down little boy Schiff in no uncertain terms. Unfortunately, nothing seems to be able to shut down the Australian E-Commissioner. You remember this weird and wonderful, strange woman? She's been placed in charge of our online safety, God love her. She's not even an Australian. However, Julie Inman Grant has come out and taunted Elon Musk as an unelected bureaucrat. Oh my God, an unelected bureaucrat. Do you think it's lost on her a little bit that she's an unelected bureaucrat? Calling out Elon Musk as an unelected bureaucrat. An unelected, un-Australian bureaucrat. Let's just get this straight. She got 2 titles there, I guess. Although, if we came down to it, I think Musk has taken up US citizenship. But you could nearly say the same thing about him if he hadn't. Speaking of Musk, we were going to talk more about him the other day. and something called the Black Cube Clan. I'll put that off until next week. I've got to do a little bit more research myself to find out what is going on there. Listen, some great news, some absolutely wonderful news if you're Catholic, and probably for Christians all over the world. Pope Benedict is preparing for death. The Swiss Guard, rather, are preparing for Pope Benedict's death. Oh, dear. He's got a very complex pneumonia. Apparently, it not only gives you the sneezes, it takes your breath away, but it also takes your soul away really slowly on the way to hell. Really, really slowly. So we'll await further good news out of the Vatican and the Swiss Guard over the weekend with a little bit of luck. I guess before I'm just about done for tonight with most of the stuff that I want to talk about, something that I am really pissed about and I've only learned about late this afternoon is another great piece of Australia, and a piece of Australia that is significant in size is going to be locked away from the average Australian from very soon. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Lake Eyre. Closed to the public. Absolutely 100% out of the way. The South Australian government has banned any recreational activity on Lake Eyre, and citizens of Australia are no longer even able to walk on Lake Eyre, which is 9,500 square kilometres big, let alone do anything else. Visit Lake Eyre will now be restricted to viewing platforms that we'll obviously pay for, and apparently the traditional owners will be able to offer you their services as guides once you get on, well, I guess what is their land. We've got a long way to go to unify, don't we, folks? We've got a long way to go before we can join together as brothers and sisters of this land together. And I know that there are so many elders, including Uncle Juma, who wants us all to band together, who sees us all as one. And yet we have these divisive Indigenous or First Nations types, the corporate types, who are still trying to charge for welcome to country ceremonies, a ceremony that was made up by Ernie Dingo in the 70s and has no relevance at all. But it's another way to charge another fee. Australia, the land of the fee. Got to be happy with that. Unfortunately, we're not probably the only country in the world that is the land of the fee. They are everywhere. We are taxed beyond existence, and we are taxed in the weirdest of ways. I told you earlier this week, the Gold Coast Council are taxing people who live above 40 stories 50% more in their rates. There are quite a few people that live above the 40th floor. There are quite a few floors above 40 on the Gold Coast. But if you're unfortunate enough to own and live in one of those units, then your rate's gone up 50%. Thank you very much. It's called a view tax. Now, don't think anybody under 40 gets away scot-free. They don't. If you live above 11, you're going to get charged more rates, but not 50%. So I'm not sure of the actual percentage, maybe 25, maybe less, maybe more. I don't know. And I believe the only people who are not going to get an increase in their rates because of the view are the people who can't see over the trees that are planted on the government council part of the road out the front of their house. So while they probably pay rent for ocean views, all they get really is ocean sounds and traffic sounds and swearing and shit and fights. And that's Surfers Paradise for you. Did I mention? Be safe, be careful if you're going to Surfers Paradise. It is all about money, as one of you just pointed out. Thank you, Joanne. 100% all about money. They want it. We've got it. And they're going to do everything they can to get it off us. And we willingly give it to them. You've seen on this show previously, if you've been watching, that we showed you where the Australian Taxation Office was registered, right up until a few days after we showed you where it was registered, above a business in a unit in East Bentley in Victoria. Nobody could come out and explain to me why the Australian Tax Department was registered to a 2-bedroom unit above a business on a very busy road in East Bentley in Victoria. Nobody. And shortly thereafter, it moved. But where? We're still looking, but we'll find it. So these questions and broader ones need to be asked to normies. Maybe a show like this will help them come to understand the depth of the tax problem, for instance. But I was having this discussion today with Tim, a follower who lives pretty close to me here, and he wanted to come out and have lunch with me today. So I graciously accepted his invitation and went off and ate his food. And we had a great talk. And, you know, we talked a lot about this point. Eventually, folks, we are going to reach a tipping point, but we are only going to reach that tipping point if we can convince the normies to wake up. And when I say the normies, I'm saying as many as we can get, because we are not going to get them all. And sometimes we are surrounded by the ones we are never, ever going to get. Why? Because of a few reasons. But we can throw red pill after red pill after red pill after red pill after red pill down these people's throats until they choke on them. But that doesn't ever mean they're going to support us and stand up and fight. They've been brainwashed so well, so securely, so thoroughly, that to stand up against government, against authority, is now simply beyond them. And you know many of these people. You can try and filter the people using a method I've developed. Won't say it works 100% of the time. And it's not meant to work 100% of the time. You've got to use your discernment. But I sort of filter people's level of acceptance or willingness to accept based on their educational level. Now, if you meet people who have a couple of degrees and a master's this and a bachelor of that, these people, even if you can convince them and make them go, about some of the more, let's say, realistic conspiracies that we now know and can prove to be true, things like the Governor-General signing the election writ in the witness position and some secret government minister that nobody's ever heard of signs it in the governor's position, making the writ, well, unlawful to begin with, and that therefore makes the election unlawful, the one where Albo Sleazy became Prime Minister. Now, that's easily checked. But what are people going to do about it? Oh, well, it was just an administrative issue. That's what Ben Fordham told me. It was just an administrative issue, Carl. So I said, okay, right, I'll believe that. The highest job in the land, the Governor-General, a job that probably has 200 administrative assistants attached to it, whose only job is to make sure the Governor-General signs in the right spot and stamps it when it comes to an election writ every 4 years or 3 years, whatever it is. They got that wrong. And Ben said, yeah, it's just an administrative mistake. I said, okay, doesn't it still make the election unlawful, illegal? And he went very quiet, because it does. But then if it's unlawful and it's illegal, and you watch these people, you know, they have little twitches and conniptions while they put it all together, and they are trying to come up with an excuse because they've been programmed to. They've been programmed to excuse these things when they come out. And the more schooling, in my experience, the more schooling these people have had, the more deeply programmed they are, and the depth of their excuse well is bottomless. as far as I can find. The more outrageous, the better. But they will never, ever be people who will fight for what we want, for what we believe all people deserve. And that is our pure freedom. So don't waste your time on them. Identify them, try, but when you get pushback, leave them. It's too late in the war to try and bring these people along. They have to catch up now. You can leave a trail, but they have to follow it. Do not stand by and try and drag them forward. You'll only alienate them and get yourself, in a position where you can't fight for us in our war. Because who knows, by wasting, half an hour, 2 hours, or a day on somebody, you're never going to be able to convince, even with the most unassailable proof, because they have just been programmed so deeply that they can generate an excuse for everything that they will believe, because it's easier to believe that for them than to admit the truth, the depth of the fraud, the depth of the deception, the broadness of the lies, the totality of them. Start out with something easy. Explain the Titanic wasn't sunk by an iceberg. The Titanic was sunk by a bomb that went off in a very special place designed to do exactly what it did, take on the water where it did. Plenty of proof for that. Why would somebody blow up the Titanic? Plenty of proof for that. 3 days after the Titanic blew up and died, and 1,500 people died, the United States Federal Reserve came into being. There's a very interesting story as to the tie-in of how that came into being and who was on the Titanic when it blew up and was sunk. Now, see if you can get people interested in that story. But if you can't, move on. Move on. There are only some of us, clearly, those of us who, in my experience, most of us who haven't been to university, most of us may have got a year 10 pass if we were lucky. Some of us probably got year 12. But all of us live in the real world. All of us deal with real world problems in our lives every day. And all of us seem to have the ability of critical thinking, to be able to look at something and go, that doesn't look right. Or I've got questions about that. And when you don't get the right answers to your questions, you delve deeper. You ask more questions. And then you might ask questions about why your questions aren't being answered truthfully. And that makes people uncomfortable, because if you catch people out in a lie or a deception, well, they don't like that very much. I've had experience with that recently. And in my observation, those that have been caught committing serious breaches of truth find it very difficult when they are confronted with that. However, nothing is unforgivable if you're God. Ask God for forgiveness, you shall receive. It may take us mere mortals a little bit longer, but we'll get there in the long run. Of that, I'm sure. But forgiveness comes as part of a huge part of what we need to learn to step up our vibration. We need to be able to forgive. We need to be able to understand, to be flexible with others' demands and needs. And that doesn't mean that you've got to give in to others' demands and needs. It means that between the two of you, or the groups of you, you have to understand where each are coming from and find out where there are commonalities, not where there are differences. J1, I'm very, very sorry. You're a fucking professor. I didn't say all educated people going to university. I have just said a great many of them who choose to attack me via email and other things when I choose to fight back, and I haven't in a long time. I'm specifically referring to 2 people who tried to tear me a new one night. And one of them had been to 3 different universities and didn't like, and got 2 different degrees. And I said, "Well, couldn't you get them all at the first one, or did you fail at the first 2 unis?" Or some smart ass comment that put them off their whole game completely. But these 2 were very highly credentialed and very upset that we would think they'd failed the IQ test. Not all very intelligent people have failed the IQ test. And please, J1, you are clearly one who has not failed in any such way. Unless you're a professor like Julia Gillard, who's an honorary one at Adelaide University. Don't know why you'd honour that thing with anything other than a full line-up firing squad. Forgiveness, that's what we were talking about. Forgiveness. I'm going to keep saying forgiveness, folks. Because I'm going to need to be very forgiving, as we all have to be from time to time. But tomorrow, I'm going to be out on the roads with all those dickheads out there. But I think I'll be able to outrun them. Can you see? I will be able to avoid the dickheads, or maybe with a 5-litre V8 under my foot, I might become one. Tomorrow is a whole new day. We can experience it together. I'll see you then.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!